Hey everyone, welcome back to the Maximum Gain podcast. It's good to be back. Last week, I hope you caught last week's episode. Nowadays, I'm doing episodes every Saturday. Earlier, I used to do it every Friday, but then as you remember, I took a 2 month gap and because of like a ton of work I had to do. And then I returned last week, and now it's going to be every Saturday, one episode every Saturday concerning a different topic. Now, last week's episode, I hope you caught, it was about my opinions on Foo Fighters' future and why I felt they had the most spectacular year in 2021. You might want to check that one out if you haven't. It's in video form on YouTube. My YouTube channel, Maximum Gain Podcast, is up and running, and I'm uploading video podcasts now. Plus, it's also on Spotify, it's on Amazon Music, Deezer, wherever else you get, you know, podcasts from, it's there. I've made sure of it. So you can find Maximum Gain Podcast anywhere. And if you're not following me on Instagram, I suggest doing that because you get a lot of updates and small clips as well on Instagram. That's you can follow me at Aarya_guy. That's AARYA_GUY. As simple as that. Also, I apologize in advance if you see me completely melt towards the end of the video. For those of you watching the video podcast, because I'm in a hot room right now and keeping off ACs and fans for for sound cleanliness. So so just excuse that if you see it. Now, this week's episode. Now you must have already noticed by the title, but this week's episode concerns Linkin Park, a band that I grew up with. I mean, like, really did grow up with, like, since I was 4 or 5 years old. I've been listening to Linkin Park, and Linkin Park was never also one of the most vulgar. They were never one of the more vulgar metal or hard rock bands from the early 2000s. There were a lot of those, like from the 90s and 2000s. There were a lot of those new wave heavy metal bands that came out, and many of them were extremely, extremely vulgar or explicit and just very graphic in their music videos as well. But Linkin Park was never that kind. Like, if you look at Limp Bizkit or Slipknot, they're very, very like extremely vulgar throughout the entire discography. Linkin Park, not at all. So they were very, very easy to get into. Linkin Park was very easy to get into for any ages. They were heavy. Linkin Park was the perfect balance of heavy and melodic, and the song structures followed the nu metal song structure, which became very popular, which was basically that whole thing of following a pop structure but having every song be heavy, following more heavy metal and funk influences but with a pop song structure. And that was something that Linkin Park nailed from the get-go. They nailed it from the get-go, all right? So I was into Linkin Park since then, but I fell off Linkin Park after their third album. Now, this is where I'll just quickly tell you what this podcast is going to be about. This week's episode. In 2017, they released an album called One More Light. Now, that album was, in my opinion, really bad, and not just because of, like, there was one big thing there, was that they went pop. Their last album to date, like up until 2022, the last album, which was released in 2017, One More Light, was a pop album. And they went full on pop. They had kind of gotten light over the years, in the late 2000s, early 2010s. They'd gotten lighter than heavy metal, but they never went pop until One More Light. And One More Light was it was just so frustrating for so many fans, and got a lot of backlash, naturally. And the thing was that everyone was wondering, why did they go to that extent of pop? There was no band before them that was as heavy as them in the beginning, but then went as light and mainstream as they did with One More Light. So for ages, honestly, for years now, I've been trying to figure out exactly why they went full on pop. Now, obviously, you might think, oh, they sold out. It's easy to just explain it as a sellout, right? It's easy to say, oh, this band sold out. They wanted a lot of money. They wanted, they wanted a bigger record deal. They wanted, again, more money, more fans, whatnot. So we want to expand our sound for the wide audience, for a wide audience, mainstream, and go pop. It's easy to say that, but there are a lot of intricacies to it. And right now, I even wrote this down just so I don't forget. I think it's important to just put a few disclaimers down before I get into my video. Now, the thing is that this episode of the podcast, I am going to try to understand and analyze why Linkin Park went pop with One More Light. And overall, I'm going to be retracing their steps, like what exactly they did until, that point to want to go that direction. And honestly, this is going to be like, as much as I am going to, yes, I am going to criticize Linkin Park quite a bit. And I know a lot of people grew up with this band. A lot of people will be very sensitive, especially regarding, the legendary Chester Bennington's untimely passing. People are going to be sensitive about that, but I have some things to say about Linkin Park, and this is how I feel. Many people can disagree with me, that's okay, but this is how I feel. These are my opinions on on Linkin Park's downfall, basically. And overall, I'm going to be talking about their truly unbelievable, extraordinary rise to fame and their unfortunate downfall. That's what this video is going to be about. And right now, I'm just going to say it. I'm gonna read off a book because it's it's important here. Now, I don't mean to offend or hate on any person affiliated with Linkin Park. That's for sure. Okay, this is just music we're talking about. That's all. I don't know any of them personally or anything like that. Blah blah blah. And I just feel that's important to say because I know how so many people can get so angry when you're angry at something they love. So whatever, I just had to say that. And now these are my opinions and theories, by the way, and theories on Linkin Park's late career decisions. Now, the main goal with this video is to try to, as I said, analyze and understand Linkin Park's decision to go pop in 2017. So I'm going to just mainly focus on that, but I will give you a brief understanding of, honestly, how extraordinary Linkin Park's rise to fame was. Now, there's a lot that's to be said about, Chester Bennington had a couple of side bands before Linkin Park. He had that band, Grey Days, before Linkin Park, which 2020 onwards, Grey Days actually started to release material for the first time ever with Chester's voice recorded and everything. They all had it recorded and stuff, but they had to release it posthumously after Chester's death because they weren't ready with it before it, so they released it after it. Now, so basically, that band, Grey Days, Chester actually formed before Linkin Park. And he was performing with that band also before Linkin Park. But then Linkin Park was formed. And they released an album in 2000. An album titled Hybrid Theory. This is one of the... Let me just click on... I have it all set up here, by the way, so that I don't lose time. Hybrid Theory was Linkin Park's debut album. And I don't know how, okay, but they got a huge producer, that's Don Gilmore. Back then also Don Gilmore was quite huge. And they got a major label. They got Warner Records Inc. Warner Records Inc. This is a huge American record label, by the way. For their debut album, which was also, by the way, at the peak of the nu metal movement, Linkin Park released Hybrid Theory, which almost instantly, within 2 years, became one of the highest selling albums of the past decade. When it came out, of the past decade. And let me tell you exactly how much it sold, because it's insane. First of all, as you can see here, it's gotten numerous platinum certifications in Argentina, Australia 5 times platinum, Belgium 2 times platinum, Canada 5 times platinum, UK 6 times platinum, United States 12 times platinum, and and Europe 4 times platinum, and overall this one album, where is it in here? This one album sold as of I think 2015 or something, which is still amazing. That's just 15 years of release. But till about 2015, it sold. Yeah, that's nuts. It has sold 27 million copies worldwide, making it the biggest selling debut album since Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction in 1987, and the best selling rock album of the 21st century. We're 22 years into the 21st century, and they're still the best selling rock album. Can you believe it? I mean, and it came out at the perfect time, the first year of this century, the first year, and it still isn't beat. It's crazy. So this album was the one that everyone was introduced to. Everyone was introduced to Linkin Park through this album, and they had true classics on this record. It's unbelievable. These are the songs they had. Now, wow, they had a lot of re-releases of this album because of how popular it was. They re-releases with special somethings or something in it. But I remember first listening to the songs One Step Closer. My brother, I remember, showed me One Step Closer, With You, Crawling. Then I started to explore them myself. Then I found out, in the end is probably my favorite, probably everyone's favorite Linkin Park song of all time. That's just a classic song. And again, one of the most insanely successful rock and metal songs out there. By Myself, Forgotten. I mean, I think every single song from this record, there are 12 songs. I think 10 to 11 of these songs are classics when it comes to like the Linkin Park fan base. Everyone will see this as like classic. And especially when it comes to rock music itself, of the 2000s at least, you can name 6 songs off of Hybrid Theory that are classics. They even had, I think, 5 or 6 single releases from this album. It is huge, basically. This album was huge, and it shot them to mainstream fame like that. They peaked at number 2 on Billboard 200, which is insanely high for a debut album. But they did that. And then after this, 3 years later, they followed it up with Meteora. Meteora did as well. Like, probably as well. It did better. Yeah, it did better, sorry. It debuted at number 1 on Billboard 200 and sold 810,000 copies in its first week. That's unheard. Back then, it was just Limp Bizkit, maybe Korn, and Linkin Park to do that. To sell over 500,000 copies in its debut week of any album. That's an insane achievement, and this one also was certified numerous times platinum by the RIAA, which is the Recording Industry Association of America. How they certify records. And by the way, going 7 times platinum, I hope you know this, means you've sold 7 million copies in the US. 7 million, all right? 1-time platinum. Many artists dream of going 1-time platinum. Linkin Park seamlessly did it with their debut album, 12 times platinum. Their sophomore album, 7 times platinum. Like, again, I love to say this, but this was how popular metal and rock was back then. And Linkin Park was a solid metal band. They were rap metal and nu metal back in the early 2000s. That's what they were. Now, let me just go to their discography because, so as I said, Meteora came out, critical hit, commercial hit, huge. And then you had, now 4 years after that, they took that's actually quite a big gap for a band as big as them, but they took a little over 4 year gap, and they released Minutes to Midnight. And now naturally the hype for Minutes to Midnight was through the roof. And they reached number 1 in every single country they released music. In every single country. You go ahead and check this out on Wikipedia. It's also been verified by numerous other, like Billboard or, these kind of record release tallying websites. Is all verified. They released They released Minutes to Midnight at number one in over 10 countries. That's insane. That's unheard of even for a pop artist, by the way. So that's how popular they were. Minutes to Midnight, which is also, again, hugely successful. Probably a little less successful, looking at the numbers here, a little less successful than Meteora, but still, like 20 million records worldwide. That's amazing. There are many bands that dream of hitting 10 million records in their lifetime. You know what I mean? That's how huge it is. Then after that, now let me just also mention one thing here. Minutes to Midnight was an album that contained a song called What I've Done, which is, I think, their biggest radio hit to date. Even more than In the End, probably. What I've Done, and it was a huge, huge hit because it was released alongside a huge blockbuster released in 2007 called Transformers. You may have heard of it, I don't know. But with Shia LaBeouf and Shia LaBeouf and a bunch of other famous people who were not used well in that movie, in my opinion. But so that song was released to accompany that movie, just naturally, which is huge, which was a huge hit. And they, right from then, you could tell, like Minutes to Midnight itself, that record, if you listen to majority of the songs, you could tell they were going lighter. Minutes to Midnight, sure, was still hard rock, but here they went, here they went, even in Wikipedia it's written, they went for a more alternative rock approach. There's alternative metal also because of songs like Given Up, but you listen to songs like What I've Done or certain other songs like, for example, Shadow of the Day, that's all hard rock. No More Sorrow is even kind of hard rock, not really metal. But you have other songs like Bleed It Out, Given Up, that are definitely very metal. So you could see them go a little lighter here, just a little more commercial, which is fine, okay. But basically they were really, like, they were in the mainstream right from 2002, basically. But here they were like pop stars. They were pop stars. On every single TV screen also, ads for the Transformers and all, like What I've Done, featuring Linkin Park's hit song, What I've Done, that would show in the promos of the Transformers, the first Transformers movie. I remember it because I remember as a kid seeing that. And then they followed up Minutes to Midnight 3 years later with A Thousand Suns. Now, this is very interesting. So, A Thousand Suns was also hugely successful. However, not as successful as Minutes to Midnight at all. Hugely successful, but not as successful. And I'll just read you the numbers. Minutes to Midnight, 4 times platinum in the United States. Yeah, that sounds about right. But A Thousand Suns was just 1 time platinum in the United States. 1 time platinum in almost most countries. And they had more gold certifications than platinum. Now, gold is basically half of platinum, right? So basically, if you get a gold record in the US, that means you've sold 500,000 copies. Platinum is 1 million copies. So they had a lot of gold ones, like in other countries. Other countries, the numbers are a little lesser. Like, for example, the UK, to achieve a platinum status, you have to sell only 300,000 copies. Depends on the population, you know. But basically, they sold a lot lesser with A Thousand Suns. And A Thousand Suns, this was also an album that was extremely... this was an album that, not extremely, but it was quite a bit lighter than the other albums. Here, all the genres that are listed A Thousand Suns to be in, like on Wikipedia, all the genres associated with Thousand Suns are electronic rock. Like, well, let me just adjust my mic here. I'm bending my neck like crazy. Now, yeah, basically electronic rock, art rock, alt rock. Do you see? It's all rock here. And even if you listen to the song, I've listened to this full album. It's not a terrible album. It's a decent album, but it's definitely lighter, way lighter than any of their previous albums before this. Very light. They had no metal songs at all. It was all alt rock, soft rock. You'd never heard that truly unique Chester Bennington scream in this album. And they had one huge hit with A Thousand Suns, which was New Divide. That was also one of their biggest hits to date. New Divide. Now, this song... Okay, wait, let me just go to... Yeah, now, New Divide was used Wait, where is New Divide? Hold on, I'm just trying to find it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, okay. New Divide was released. It was a single released specifically for Transformers 2: Revenge of the Fallen, which was also a huge hit. Now here also, this song was very similar. You listen to New Divide and you listen to What I've Done. They are too similar. You just listen to it. Probably the producers told them, "Hey, listen, we want a song just like What I've Done. Release that." And they're like, "Okay, fine, we're going to do that. We want a shit ton of money." And they were like, "Okay, sure." That's how New Divide was probably come out. Again, my opinions. Okay, I'm just making up assumptions here. There's nothing that is available to actually see as to why they took these turns. They'll only say, the band members have only constantly said, "Oh, we felt this was the natural direction for the band," because they don't want to be accused of selling out. They don't want to actually say like, "Well, we got more money for this." So, um, so whatever. New Divide was released for Transformers 2. Then shortly after that, Transformers 3, which was in 2000, I think 11 or 12, there was another Linkin Park song that was attached to a Transformers movie, which is Transformers 3. And that song was Iridescent, I think is how you say it. Iridescent. This is also alt rock and electronic rock. They were going more and more into the electronic spectrum of music. And sure, I kind of accepted that. I kind of expected that actually. Expected that because right from the beginning, it was a very. Right from the beginning, Linkin Park was a very electronic sounding band. They were with the the turntables and the squeaky waka pow, and and the squeaky things of whatever the turntables, everything. They were using all of that, and a lot of electronic sounding guitars and sounds and all right from the very beginning, right from Hybrid Theory. So I was expecting them to maybe explore electronic music a little bit more. But I honestly thought they'd go like kind of electronic core or electronic metal, over the years. But I didn't expect them to go this light. Iridescent, which is a very light song. It doesn't even sound like a Linkin Park song. You take out Chester Bennington's iconic, wholly unique voice, it does not sound like Linkin Park. So yeah. So okay, let me just look at my notes again. There's a lot to talk about, there's a lot to talk about. As I said, they had an amazing start to their career with, immediately being signed onto a major record label and having one of the most successful rock albums of all time as their debut. And then followed up with two more extremely successful albums. And so yeah, now we're at 1,000 Suns, released in 2010. Now, skip ahead 2 years. Now go 2 years later, they release Living Things, which is also decidedly, really decidedly, electronic rock and alternative rock album. It still had Mike Shinoda's signature rap vocals on it, which is good because later on they took that off also, but we'll get to that. So this one was huge. Living Things was huge. They had the song Burn It Down, which was a humongous hit, and it is a good song. But again, it's just it's frustratingly not the Linkin Park that we were used to, which was the Hybrid Theory, Meteora sounding Linkin Park, even Minutes to Midnight sounding Linkin Park. And yeah, now let me move to something a little sensitive and a little different here. Now, 1,000 Suns, as I said, definitely a significant step lower when it came to their commercial success. They still reached number one in the US and all that stuff, but they didn't reach number one in the UK and other countries. Then there is Living Things, which was an even lighter album than 1,000 Suns, and they reached number one on Billboard and UK and other countries. They in fact got higher charting numbers than 1,000 Suns. But I think fans were probably like really wanting that heavier sound back. So they probably listened to the fans. And then they released The Hunting Party in 2014. Now, this is what I was talking about right from the beginning. This is where I wanted to really talk about their, what do you say, their sellout album, One More Light. Or not sellout album, but I mean, yeah, it is a sellout album. But basically, talk about the reasons why they chose to go full on pop. Now, they're still not pop. They're electronic rock, rap rock, alt rock. not pop. They are embracing that electronic pop sound, sure, for, parts of the albums so far, but One More Light was a total pop album. They were like a pop band, as simple as that. Now, The Hunting Party, however, an album that came out 3 years before One More Light, The Hunting Party, they went back to that alt metal sound, new metal sound, hard rock, rap metal, and it was good. In my opinion, it wasn't great, but it was quite good. Okay, it was quite good. And look at this. It featured guest appearances from a person from a band member from Helmet, Darren Malakian from System of a Down, which is a very heavy metal band, Rage Against the Machines, Tom Morello. Like, this was clearly embracing this album, The Hunting Party, they were clearly embracing their rock sound, their metal sound, like anything. And I did listen to it. Chester is screaming again, and it is, in my opinion, it's more of a kind of punk metal kind of vibe, punk metal, but it is definitely metal. And I was very happy with it. And a lot of critics were also very happy with it, especially after the underwhelming critical releases of Thousand Suns and Living Things even. So they released this album, right? And yeah, sure, they got success. Like, when you compare Linkin Park, even at their lowest low, which by the way is Hunting Party, I'll get to that shortly. But even if you compare Linkin Park's lowest low in terms of sales, it's still the highest when it comes to any other band at the time. It's still the highest. At the most, maybe Avenged Sevenfold or like some other lighter rock bands were probably selling as much as Linkin Park, but still, Linkin Park was still like in a league of its own. They were in a league of their own, Linkin Park. But let's look at what happened when they released The Hunting Party. Now, Living Things sold like 225,000 copies in its first week and reached number 1 in the US. Now, we're just talking about the US here, okay? And the reason why we're just talking about the US is because that's their home country. So they sold a lot there with Living Things, and they reached number 1. But The Hunting Party, when they went back to their old school sound, as they were putting it, and people were happy with it and stuff like that, they sold only 110,000 copies in the United States. This was a huge drop. This is over 50% drop as compared to the opening week numbers of their previous albums, albums and album Living Things. It barely stayed on the Billboard charts as well. Barely stayed. 110,000 copies. Okay, that's nothing compared to other albums of Linkin Park. And also, this was their first album. Their first album not to hit number 1 in the United States since Hybrid Theory. Hybrid Theory was their debut and it peaked at number 2, but it's still their all-time greatest selling album. But Meteora, number 1. Minutes to Midnight, number 1. Thousand Suns, number 1. And Living Things, number 1. Suddenly, Hunting Party, number 3. And the UK also, number 2. Whereas Living Things reached number 1 in both countries, as I said. So they actually barely reached number 1 in any country with Hunting Party. They reached number 1 in Germany, in somewhere in South America, and that's about it. So they really suffered with album sales here, and this album is known as their weakest performing album to date. It really is. Eventually they got a platinum status. This was also the slowest record to reach platinum status for Linkin Park. But they eventually reached platinum status, but not because of the album itself, because of something tragic that happened later on. I'm sure you can guess, but I'll bring that up later. So, yeah. So they reached a point in their career where they probably realized, hey, you know what, let's just listen to fans. Let's go back to our really heavy sound. Let's label this as a metal release by Linkin Park and let's release The Hunting Party. Which I admire that. I was like, okay, fine, good. If they did choose to do that. Also, a thing to mention here, Hunting Party is the first album by Linkin Park to be produced solely by Linkin Park members. Brad Delson and Mike Shinoda, who are both a part of the band Linkin Park as performers. Brad Delson, I think, is a guitarist, and Mike Shinoda, of course, is a writer, producer, and vocalist for Linkin Park. This is their first album not to be produced by rock and metal legend of a producer, Rick Rubin. So you could kind of see maybe they were calling the shots, like primarily here, they were calling the shots. Okay, maybe. But with Hunting Party, clearly it was disappointing. And also, I gotta show you this. It's just interesting, you know. If you look at the singles, now every album from Hybrid Theory onwards, every album they'd have at least one song to reach the Billboard US top 100 singles chart. Huge chart, by the way, a huge chart, and they'd always did like their debut album, Hybrid Theory. One Step Closer reached number 75 in the US Hot 100 chart. Crawling, 79. In the end, number 2, which is just humongous. I can't stop talking about it, but yeah, it's huge. Okay, reaching number 2 for a song as heavy as In the End. That was huge. And that's just their debut album. Then you go to Meteora, again, you know, 32, 48, 11. 3 songs that reached the Hot 100. Then you go to, okay, they did one kind of remix album with Jay-Z and stuff called Collision Course. That also, that one song reached number 20. Then you go to their third official studio release, which is Minutes to Midnight. Number 7, number 52, number 15. That was songs from Minutes to Midnight that reached the Hot 100. Oh, and Given Up, which was at number 99. Then New Divide, which was a separate release, that reached number 6. Then A Thousand Suns had 2 songs, number 27, number 42, that reached the Hot 100. Then Living Things also, number 30, number 95 on the Hot 100. It's amazing. No other band has ever achieved this, by the way. No other hard rock and heavy metal band like Linkin Park has ever achieved this. But now suddenly, you go to the Hunting Party. Now, Linkin Park's album sales were slowly reducing. That's true. They were slowly reducing right from Minutes to Midnight onwards. But Hunting Party, it was like it got cut in half or more than half, like 60% lesser in sales of both singles and records in total with the Hunting Party as compared to their other albums. And they had 0 songs reach the Hot 100 on the Hunting Party. 0. That means their radio hits really took a hit with the Hunting Party. This is what interested me. This I realized there were only a couple of songs to hit the bubbling under Hot 100. That's like a kind of side list where, you know, if some songs are really popular but they aren't able to include it to the Hot 100, there's a bubbling under Hot 100 which has like 20 more songs. You know, so like here they reached number, like for Hunting Party they reached number 17 and number 15, which is really low for Linkin Park. In the lowest to date for Linkin Park. And that came out of Hunting Party. So right there, you could see like, okay, they're slowing down in sales. Like, okay, Hunting Party, they may have gone back to the original sound. They made a lot of people happy, but they really went down in sales. Worldwide, by the way, not just the US, but worldwide, they went really down in sales, and the popularity of singles was also really down. So, go by, like, fast forward 3 years. 2014 was Hunting Party. 2017, they announced the release of One More Light with their first single release, which was a song called Heavy. I don't know if you've heard this song. Let me just quickly play it. Now, let me play 2 examples of what Linkin Park used to be and what Linkin Park became with One More Light. Now, I don't want to play too much because, you know, I don't want to play too much. Now, let's just play One Step Closer. This is a song that I absolutely love, and this is how heavy they actually get. Okay. One sec. I hope many of you remember this song. It's a great song, but so you want to hear how heavy Linkin Park actually was initially? You just need to go to the bridge. To the edge, and I'm about to step closer to the edge, and I'm about to listen to this. This is how heavy Linkin Park used to be. This is off of their debut album. Sorry, let me just put it a little back. That's how heavy they are. They get this heavy. This guy is screaming and the guitars are heavy. And you want another example of heavy? Lying From You, which is off of Meteora, their second album. Meteora is also a tremendous album. It's a great album. Now again, I go straight to the bridge. Like this. Listen to the scream. Like that's what they were like, and you hear the disc scratches and stuff. Like that was Linkin Park at their best. Honestly, Lying From You, In the End, One Step Closer, still some of my favorite hard rock and metal songs to date. But so they went from that, and they gradually then shifted to a sound like this, what I've done, which was from Minutes to Midnight. As I said, Minutes to Midnight also went kind of lighter. Now you listen to this. Definitely more commercial. You see a lot lighter. Now listen to the bridge. It's nowhere near as heavy as any of the other songs on Meteora or Hybrid Theory. Very melodic. So see how light they became already with their third album, Minutes to Midnight. Now you want to hear, now fast forward, okay, to skip 2 or 3 albums. Now Hunting Party, as I said, they went heavier with Hunting Party. Let me just play one song off of Hunting Party to make you understand how heavy they were able to go back to with the Hunting Party. Which song? I forgot which one though was a good example. Okay, let's see. Key to the Kingdom. All of them might not be too heavy, but let's listen. Right from the beginning, screams are back. Yeah. It's a weird sounding song. So you see, Hunting Party, they came back to a heavier sound, much heavier than anything like their previous 2 albums before this had. So then, yeah, so as I said, I explained to you, Hunting Party was not at all as commercially successful as their previous albums. So then they released the song Heavy to introduce their latest album, which is so far their latest album. One More Light. Let's have a listen to Heavy, shall we? Yeah, man, Heavy. Can you imagine? They're literally playing with us. Also, I remember when this album was released, and I remember feeling cheated with by the fact that they called the album. I mean, they called this song Heavy. Their lead single, they called it Heavy, and this is what it sounded like.
I don't like my mind right now. Stacking up problems that are so unnecessary. Wish that I could slow things down.
It's not a terrible song, okay, but it's so disappointing.
Why is everything so heavy? Holding on to so much more
This is
than
not
I
Linkin
can
Park anymore.
I keep dragging around
This is a Chester Bennington side project or a Mike Shinoda side project. And it has an extremely melodramatic music video. Featuring Kiara. Like, you listen to the production.
It's not like I made the choice to let my mind stay so fucking messy.
So it's really bad, and as you can imagine, hearing a song like this, it does not have a breakdown. The song is about dealing with pain, and I get pain and anger and addiction and probably mental breakdowns, but it does not have a musical breakdown. I respect them for changing their sound. I respect any artist for experimenting and trying new things, but with this album, it just seemed too much of a. It just seemed like too much of a sellout album, and it was too much of a coincidence that they go this light right after they face one of the biggest dips in commercial success. It was a little too much. This song Heavy is not terrible. It's okay. But I have to say, the video, I remember it now. The video is so overdone, so melodramatic. It's like, it really isn't. However, they clearly struck a chord with a lot of people because, surprise, surprise, Heavy, after they went full on pop and electro pop and R&B with this album, Heavy reached number 45 on the Hot 100. Number 45 on the Hot 100. Let's go back to the discography now properly. They had Heavy reached number 45. They didn't have any other, I was surprised, they didn't have any other song of the album reach the Hot 100. They had Talking to Myself reach number 9 on Bubbling Hot 100 and number 4 on Bubbling under Hot 100. But still, they had a Hot 100 single, which was something that they didn't have with Hunting Party. And this is where I feel like they wanted to have another really successful album, or they were probably getting scared that, oh no, going back to our heavy sound, that was probably a misstep because we really severed our our commercial success in half. So let's go to a lighter sound. Let's do something more relatable, something way more radio friendly than we've ever done. Let's bring in pop artists like Kiara to provide vocals and blah, blah, blah. And they did One More Light. And again, another thing with the Hunting Party, that like a lot of things went wrong commercially with the Hunting Party. Even though it is a good album, a lot of things went wrong commercially. Hunting Party, I told you, the slow album sales, they eventually reached platinum, but not very soon. They did not reach number one in numerous countries as they did with their previous ones. Also, when it comes to the singles of Hunting Party, none of them were certified in any country. None of them were certified because of, a lack of radio play. And maybe they saw this as, maybe the fans don't want this kind of heaviness. Let's give them what they want. straight out pop, or they were just like, you know what, we want to move in this direction. Now, I don't know. Mike Shinoda has multiple times said that it was a natural progression for them to move into pop territory. I do not feel that. It just doesn't seem right. I would have been fine. I would have honestly expected them to go in a more metalcore route. Metalcore mixed kind of that light alt metal, alt rock sound with some really heavy metal subgenres. That's metalcore. But metalcore is also extremely, like metalcore is Avenged Sevenfold and Killswitch Engage. Those are extremely melodic but very heavy bands. If Linkin Park had gone that direction, I would have been totally fine. Totally fine. But the fact that they went pop with One More Light right after Hunting Party just seemed too much like a cash grab. It seemed too much like, okay, we're going to go just straight up, we're going to try and have the most radio-friendly singles of them all, and which is what they had. Heavy. That's one of their biggest singles to date. They had that. It went gold in the US. Then they released another song called One More Light, which went gold in the US as well. Silver in the UK. None of that was achieved with the Hunting Party. And this is where, when One More Light released, now obviously maybe they expected backlash, but they probably didn't expect this much backlash. One More Light got mixed to negative reviews by critics, and it got torn apart by their fan base. Just torn apart by their fan base. It got so torn apart that Chester Bennington himself went on a kind of rant, a very, by the way, explicit rant, condemning fans when it came to them receiving One More Light. I'll tell you exactly what he said. Now, this was sad to hear, especially put into context his suicide. It was really, really sad. And this was Chester Bennington's response. It's literally, he lashed out in response. That's what's written in Wikipedia. Lashed out in response to the negative reception of One More Light's material. This is what he said. Chester Bennington, at the accusations that the band had sold out, suggested that those people should stab themselves in the face. Now, they changed that. It's actually stab yourselves in the face. And he said, move the fuck on from the band's past sound. That is really sad. That is really sad. Now, Bennington also said in a separate interview with Kerrang, Bennington, in response to claims of selling out the album, said, if you're going to be the person who says, like, they made a marketing decision to make this kind of record to make money, you can fucking meet me outside and I will punch you in your fucking mouth. Now, I think he went overboard there. I think he really went overboard because Linkin Park has a really dedicated fan base, and for him to say that to basically his fan base were the ones who were trashing it. To say that is really sad, and it's insulting, and it's just, dude, like, don't get violent with your response like that. If you're happy with the album, then you shouldn't care to, like, what other people say about it. Your album reached number 1. You shouldn't care what other people say about it. It's really, really too much. I felt like that response that Chester Bennington gave was too much. Shinoda gave a little more of a kind of lowered, more calmer response. Mike Shinoda also rejected claims that they had made the album for monetary reasons, responding that it's not how I operate. Now, then later Bennington, explained that the accusation of selling out angered him because he saw it as a personal attack, concluding that when you make it personal, like a personal attack against who we are as people, like, dude, shut up. That means that I can actually have feelings about it, and most of the time my feelings are I want to kill you. Now, see there, fans were saying that Linkin Park sold out. They weren't saying Chester Bennington sold out. So I don't think it is a personal attack. And also, whether it's a personal attack or not, you cannot say something like, you can fucking meet me outside and I will punch you in your fucking mouth. you can stab yourselves in the face. That's, in my opinion, a little too much. And see, none of the other bands had that kind of reaction to these negative reviews. It was only Chester, which is really sad, considering the fact that 2 to 3 months after One More Light's release, Chester Bennington committed suicide. And it was really sad. He was going through clearly a lot of things. And I cannot speak on what he was going through. That's a totally different thing. And I will say, I was really sad. I remember one of my friends back in 2017, he sent me a message saying Chester Bennington just died, and with a sad emoji. And I was like, no, what? No, how can that be? Then I looked and I was like, oh my God. I was so horrified, and I was really sad. I was really saddened by that. Because Chester does have truly one of the most iconic voices in all of rock and metal. No one sounds like him, and anyone who does sound like him today took inspiration from his vocals from his early albums. He really had. And also, if you have not listened to the song Given Up, listen to it. It has one scream that to this day is impossible to achieve by even professional vocalists out there. Many vocalists have tried to do that. In particular, one vocalist that I love, which honestly I think he's one of the most impressive vocalists of today, a guy named Justin Bonnets from the band Tala and from his side projects. Justin Bonnets was the closest anyone could get to achieving that one-take scream by Chester Bennington in the song Given Up. Listen to that song, you'll understand why Chester is such a praised singer. He absolutely deserves all the praise he's gotten. But at the same time, I cannot agree with that kind of response he gave for One More Light. So, now, as I was saying, right, I had mentioned earlier that Hunting Party took some time to reach platinum status in the US, and it did not reach platinum status until July or August 2017. That was shortly after Chester Bennington passed away, and all their albums reached the Billboard Top 200 once more. Their songs also reached the Hot 100 again, and they got like a small burst of success when people realized, oh my God, one of the greatest singers of all time has passed away. So a bunch of tributes poured out, and a lot of people were listening to Linkin Park again on radio and buying their albums again, that it shot up their album sales. So Hunting Party went up, and One More Light even though it had a pretty good opening week, One More Light, I didn't mention this, One More Light sold, it debuted at number 1, 111,000 copies in its first week. Now, that may not seem like much, but compare it to the Hunting Party. Hunting Party reached number 3 and sold 110,000 copies. That's still more than Hunting Party. So, and also, One More Light was more enduring. It was more enduring on the Billboard 200 chart, as well as the UK charts and dozen other country charts, actually. So, overall, One More Light did a lot better. And One More Light's album sales also went up high because of Chester's passing. So I refuse to believe that they just wanted to go into this direction. I refuse to believe that they felt electropop and pop was their future. That they felt this is the natural evolution for the band. No, it was not. It was them trying to make up for a lack of success with the Hunting Party. That's what it was. And they succeeded, but they also lost a lot of people with this album. They lost a lot of people, and then unfortunately the band had to kind of call it quits, or right now it's written hiatus. They're on a hiatus ever since Chester's passing. So yeah, it's crazy what this band was, what they used to sound like and what they sound like now. That's one of the most crazy changes I've ever seen. And also another piece of bullshit that I have to call out. Brad Delson, who was a producer for One More Light and Hunting Party, along with Mike Shinoda, and he's also lead guitarist of, guitarist of Linkin Park. He actually said that there really is a ton of guitar on this album in response to One More Light. This was, I think, this was published in April 3rd, 2017 on Music Radar website. The Music Radar website. I got this, by the way, from a reference link on Wikipedia. So here he said, on One More Light, there is really a ton of guitar on this album. He clearly said that just to sell the album, because if you listen to One More Light, I think one song has guitar. And that's about it. That's about it. See, a lot of people do this, okay? When directors and actors sell their movies, especially when actors sell their movies, they're like, oh, you've never seen anything like this, but you've seen something like it, and it's a shitty film. And even with musicians, they're like, oh, this is a fresh direction, but it's a much better direction or a heavier direction, and we've never done anything like this. But when it comes out, it's like, it sounds very similar, or it's actually really bad and not heavy at all, So clearly, Brad Delson was saying that, this is what he said. Any longtime fan of this band knows that we tend to make violent course changes from album to album. That was Brad Delson speaking about One More Light a month before the album's release. Now, their first 3 albums sound like Linkin Park. Their first 3 albums were like pretty damn close to each other. You exchange songs and you still kind of feel like it's kind of in the same playing field there of sound. But 1,000 Suns, their 4th album, 1,000 Suns onwards, it truly was a different sound. It didn't sound like Linkin Park anymore. It really didn't. So, what can I say? What can I say here, really? They made course corrections only from their 4th album onwards for more commercial success. Now, as I said, the thing is that with this pop course correction, right, with One More Light, one thing that was sad about it was that it was so sudden and so abrupt, so jarring. Right after the Hunting Party, people were expecting, they're going to go heavier maybe after Hunting Party. Okay, let's hear it. And then suddenly they go pop. It was so jarring that it got people so like, what the hell? I just listened to Hunting Party and I listened to Hybrid Theory and all, and now you're this? Like, why? How could that happen? So it was so jarring for them to go for that, as Brad Delson called it, this, what did he say exactly? Violent course changes. So they made a violent course change when they went to One More Light. And that was one of the main reasons why I think people kind of just couldn't accept like that pop sound. If they had released like 2 albums before it that were noticeably more and more pop, then maybe it would have eased audiences into One More Light a little better. But I've noticed this with other bands also. Like, for example, Korn. I have to mention that because they're my favorite band of all time. And they are also, by the way, one of the most popular, one of the most mainstream metal and hard rock bands out there. Really. And Korn was one of those bands that in 1999, with their album Issues, they sold over 500,000 copies in its first week. So, in their first week of release of that album. So, Korn is huge. They've achieved almost as much success as Linkin Park has. But with Korn also, they faced a similar issue. Now, Korn is known right from the beginning. They're also known for making some really serious course corrections, or not course corrections, but they're known to experiment with different genres on every album, right from the very beginning. But they had a transitional phase in the late 2000s where they released 3 albums in succession, like 3 albums consecutively within the span of, I think, 5 years, which is insane. That's a really prolific career, by the way. 3 albums in 5 years. One was their Untitled album, which was an industrial metal and hard rock album with, strangely enough, with some kind of deathcore elements with Jonathan Davis's vocals, the lead singer's vocals. And after this Untitled album in 2007, 3 years later, they released an album called Korn 3 Remember Who You Are, which was an album that they were trying to harken back to their old sound with. This one was classic, like kind of old school, very grungy sounding Korn. Very heavy metal and not hard rock at all, just proper metal. However, I hate this album because it was very boring. But 1 year, exactly 1 year after this album, Can't Remember Who You Are, they released a dubstep metal album. Now that would be jarring for anyone, whether it is a good album or a bad one. And by the way, Overtime Path of Totality, which was their third album, in that succession, in that period, that album, The Path of Totality, was a good album, but so many people lashed out against it because it was so jarring after their previous two records. You had an industrial metal album and a hard rock album. Then you had a proper Korn sounding new metal album with Can't Remember Who You Are. Then you had dubstep. Dubstep metal. They were the first and still the only metal band to do that. Or at least the only mainstream metal band to do that. They were definitely the first. So I noticed it with Korn also. They took such a drastic thing. Now one thing is that this dubstep album, it was very heavy. Okay, it's not at all like pop. It's heavy. It's a heavy metal album, but with some serious dubstep elements in it. Primarily dubstep. So one thing that bands should realize is that when you're trying to make a course change, like try to ease into it. Like fans also, they want to kind of still hear your core sound, right? A band becomes famous because fans have really trusted them in delivering a core sound that they've made popular. Linkin Park, they had that amazing rap vocals mixed in with the clean and gut-wrenching screams with, Mike and Chester, and then you had these amazing kind of turntable sounds, electronic sounds and all, and these heavy guitars and the simple drums and all that stuff. And the kind of very atmospheric synth sounds to it. It was really good. None of that existed in their in One More Light or even their album Living Things and A Thousand Suns. Nothing really like that existed. They wiped that off and they did it in such a jarring way, especially with One More Light. Such a jarring way. So maybe that was why it's such it's not a terrible album. One More Light's not a terrible album, but again, it's not a Linkin Park album in my eyes or in my ears. It's not a Linkin Park album. It's a Chester and Mike side project, not Linkin Park at all, because it completely took out every single element that made Linkin Park famous. If a band were to have released, if another band, okay, that was a fresh band, were to release One More Light as their debut album, that album would reach nowhere because it's actually not a very impressive album at all. But the fact that Linkin Park releases One More Light, it had to reach number one. You know what I mean? It had to reach number one. It was a huge IP and it's like, it had to reach number one. So yeah. So basically, I feel that One More Light is absolutely a sellout album. But more so also, yeah, a course change, but to make up for the losses that the Hunting Party kind of had. That's what I truly believe. That's what it sounded like. And what honestly pissed me off even more was the fact that Linkin Park themselves started making fun of their old sound, which is what pissed off a lot of fans as well. They started making fun of their old sound, their new metal sound, which they made so popular, after bands like Korn, Slipknot, and Limp Bizkit took to different heights. Linkin Park took it to a whole new height, with Hybrid Theory, and then Meteora, and then Minutes to Midnight. And then in 2017, early 2017, they made fun of that sound with their with one video that was posted actually on their Instagram account. I'm going to play it on YouTube right now. But it's them playing their song Heavy, which I showed you, in a nu metal style. A lot of people actually like this style. And I also did. It's good, but this is what Chester said right in the beginning of the video. Let me play it.
Are you going to do that? You want to do the other one?
Did we figure out what we're trying to do?
I know.
The new metal version?
Yeah, the new metal version.
It's gonna fucking suck.
New metal version? And he starts laughing, and he said it's gonna fucking suck. I can understand if that would have kind of hurt some old school fans of Linkin Park and of those bands at the time. Because, first of all, saying like it's gonna fucking suck, kind of isn't Chester kind of implying that he doesn't like their old material also? Like, doesn't that kind of imply that the fact that a new metal version of Heavy is gonna suck? He said it's gonna fucking suck. So are you saying that your first 3 albums fucking suck then? It got on my nerves because these were the kind of words that Chester would put out when promoting the album, and especially post reactions of the album. He'd put out some really nasty responses. He did put out an apology, by the way. He did put out an apology after his reaction got backlash. But it was the most lazy reactions. Sorry, didn't mean to hurt anyone. Peace, love. Like, that's it. So, basically that's how he starts off this new metal thing. By saying,
It's gonna fucking suck.
it's gonna fucking suck. Then you listen to it and it's actually a lot better. Even though this is a very rough recording of them rehearsing the song in their studio, it still sounds more engaging and better than the original song Heavy, that really fake sounding pop production. This sounds like old school Linkin Park. And what's weird is that Chester is himself kind of enjoying it. You could see him, he's enjoying it. They're all kind of like enjoying it. And this sounds like old school Linkin Park. Look at that. So this actually was done as a joke. This whole bit was done as a joke and put onto their social media to kind of troll those oldie new metal fans. Which, honestly, I get it, fine, yeah, okay, it's a joke, and fine, I also wouldn't have taken it like a personal hit or anything like that. But it's kind of sad to see like one of the greatest new metal bands start tearing their old material and the new metal genre apart by the end of their career. It's sad, honestly. And honestly, they never released anything as good as Hybrid Theory and Meteora since then. They never did. So, yeah, so it's just really unfortunate to see that was their reaction to the new metal sound and all right before they had to call a hiatus because of Chester. Again, they had their own reasons to do what they do, and these are my opinions and my feelings on what they did finally do. So it may be true, it may not be. These are my theories. It could be because of a hunting party's lack of success, I'm not sure. But I don't know where Linkin Park is going to end up now, because ever since Chester passed away, there's just been no word. They re-released Hybrid Theory with some unreleased recordings in 2020. I don't know if you've heard that. There's an amazing Linkin Park song called She Couldn't. It's one of the lighter ones, but it definitely sounds old school Linkin Park. It sounds like something that would have come out of Meteora or Hybrid Theory. It's a good song, and it's definitely not at all as, I don't know, as emotionless and lazy sounding as anything off of One More Light. It's good, So, yeah, you gotta listen to that. This is where I appreciate a band like Korn or even Deftones, bands that are much older than Linkin Park, but they've maintained their stamp of quality over the years, and they have stayed in the mainstream for so long. Korn is still in the mainstream. Deftones is still in the mainstream, still having some real chart-topping rock hits and stuff. And this is what Korn sounds like today. I just have to play this. This is what Korn sounds like, because this is one of my favorite songs of theirs in the past few years. It's a song called Worst Is On Its Way. This is the bridge. Side, the confidence overrides. This is, anyone who hears this, you'll know, like, this is old school Korn. I can only play that much right now, but if you haven't listened to Korn Worst On Its Way, this is one of the more like fun sounding Korn songs in the past few years. It's really good. Korn is mainstay. They've maintained the heavy sound. You know, they've dabbled with mainstream genres and all. That's in fact what created nu metal. When they released their first album, that's what created nu metal. They dabbled with mainstream genres like funk and hip hop, but they mixed it with metal. And it's just so sad to see that Linkin Park went full on pop and didn't try to kind of dabble more with their original sound, but with more mainstream synthwave kind of sounds. They just went full on pop. It's unfortunate, in my eyes at least. So yeah, this was a long episode. I think it's 1 hour 12 minutes. I'm gonna stop right now. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. Again, you know, these guys seem like nice guys, and they made some of my favorite hard rock and heavy metal songs of all time. So I have nothing against their old material. It's just the new stuff that just frustrated me, as well as a lot of other people, I'm sure, you know, when it came to their genre choices. So yeah. So thank you all so much for listening. I hope you all really enjoyed this. I'm realizing I'm repeating it again and again. Hope you all enjoyed this. And follow me on Instagram, as I said, Aarya_guy. You'll get a lot of updates, a lot of clips. Follow me on YouTube. Maximum Gain Podcast is the name of the channel. You'll get a full video podcast along with this background that I did in a hurry. I don't have much to work with right now. All right? I don't have a huge studio or anything like that. I don't have much to work with. This is what I got, and I thought it looks pretty fucking cool. So, by the way, for those listening to me, I have lights behind me. That's basically it. I have lights behind me. All right. So, as always, I hope you stay happy, and I hope you stay safe to all of you out there. Thanks for listening. See you.